So we're at the Mobile World Congress today, and we're joined here by Jordan from Fantoo, who is the founder and CEO. And it's Dell's first global startup in residence, so for experience working with big business and the entrepreneur spirit of Dell. How has the experience been so far, Jordan?
Well, we're about 2 years into this experience, and it's been great as far as, I guess, we're getting to understand about the willingness of Dell to work with a startup such as ourselves. They're all about innovation, obviously as a technology company, but to be able to nurture a company in-house, we're firsthand being able to see what that means. And I guess for us, that means access to market, access to technology, and so far it's been great. We're trying to evangelize as much as we can about our journey for other startups that are considering if Dell is the right company for them to work with.
Great, and you've been working with them for 2 years, is that
Approximately
correct?
2 years now, correct. In that journey, as I said, we've learned a lot about the company itself. It's a very large company. We've learned about the technology availability, about the routes to market, so correct.
And why does Dell believe in working with Fantoo?
I guess we asked ourselves that same question when Michael selected us 2 years ago. Dell is one of the largest distributors of Office and Exchange licenses. For us to be a company that's aiming to make the email experience far better than it is today for the corporate user, I believe it gives Dell something to differentiate in the market, but also say, we've actually nurtured an innovative solution in-house, so that's why I believe it's important to Dell.
Okay, so what is Fantoo doing in terms of making the email work better?
Well, email today, or the problem of email, academics have put a number on that, and email overload is one attribute of the problem. The other is we all are bombarded with lots of meetings, up to 48 hours a week on meetings, endless interruptions at work, 85% of which are not fundamentally important. $15,000 has been attributed to each user in the workspace per annum in terms of loss to their productivity and efficiency. So for Fantoo, we're all about really putting as much of that, I guess, loss back into a business, up to 25%, which is about $4,000 per year back into the business. So per person, if we can do that, we really have a game changer. And with Dell at the moment, Dell is again right now shipping more Office 365 licenses than any other distributor. Together, if we can really make that impact in the market, then we're moving the industry forward.
Okay, so you're working with Office 365.
Correct.
And you're the overface of it. How does it all the front end?
Correct. The best way to look at it is Fantoo is a lens that sits over the top of Office 365. And we're all about really improving the user experience. We're all about minimizing the noise that you receive on a day-to-day basis, and essentially getting the user to become far more productive and efficient. I guess an analogy that I would use is Uber or Airbnb. In the case of Uber, they don't actually own a single cab, but they have now essentially taken over the taxi market. In the case of Fantoo, we don't want to change the back end. Microsoft is doing a great job as far as security and data redundancy is concerned. We're all about essentially improving the end user experience. If we can do that, then again, we are moving that market forward similar to the Uber or the Airbnbs right now that are disrupting this market.
Okay, so and the customer experience, I mean, what do people say about Fantoo?
I guess from the users that we've been working with at this early stage, we've identified that our go-to-market is really people that are in the creative, visual media industries, new millennials that are coming into the workforce. So people that haven't necessarily grown up with email, it's a new thing for them, and they go into the workspace, and it's essentially being told to them that you've got to start using some form of email client. So from our perspective, they love the fact that it's a fresh, new, beautiful experience, but that it moves beyond email as far as chat, as far as being able to collaborate and share information. So that's really what we found with our user base, that's what they particularly like.
Okay, so you can take the chat from the email onto chat. That's what Fantoo enables.
Correct. It's one of our feature sets, really. A lot of the companies in our space like to kind of sometimes say that email is broken. Let's put it aside, and we've got a completely new solution for you. I guess our philosophy is there's 1 billion users out there, and let's use them as a bridge to moving them forward. And Move to Chat is one of those ways where we actually allow the user to move a conversation to chat off the back of an email thread and have all of the participants and all of the people and the files, I guess, that are associated with that email moving on.
Okay.
And equally, we provide this in a unified experience manner whereby if you're on a mobile device, you're on a desktop, you get the same experience. And that's something right now that even, I guess, other large players in the market have not been able to provide to the end user, and that's what we're feeling right now is giving us our USP to do that.
And you're also customizing it to the user, basically, on the computer.
Correct. I guess that's the part where we're trying to be smart. We don't want to be over smart, but we are trying to ensure that the user experience is very much tailored to the actual person that's involved. So for example, we're looking at the metrics of how much time are you spending reading emails, from whom, and also the topic of conversation. Is it a sales-based email? Is it a potential lead? Is it a customer complaint? To be able to bring that to the top so that the company can essentially deal with those issues firsthand is, again, part of the smart process that we're trying to do. Okay,
and also, I mean, Dell has chosen you as the first global startup. Why do you think Dell is like promoting startups, and what is their interest in startups?
I guess it comes down to, tomorrow's disruptors, tomorrow's enablers. There's a lot of startups out there, and it's more than likely going to come from somebody in that segment who is a disruptor, who's an enabler. And with Dell, they've got access to so much technology. For us as a startup to be able to have access to that technology enables us to be able to do what we're trying to do. And I guess Dell's recognized that. This program kicked off about 2 years ago. Michael Dell took the company private. They coined themselves as the world's largest startup. So I think it was also about the spirit of entrepreneurship in the company. And I guess from our perspective, again, as I said, we try to evangelize our journey. We speak to people at Dell. There's a lot of people at Dell. We're constantly trying to talk to more people, evangelize, understand what makes them tick in their business so that we can, I guess, position ourselves in a way that allows us collectively to then go to market. And that's really what's happened with Office 365. We've tried to identify Dell's customers that really could see a benefit with our product. So, for example, we've conversations underway with WPP, Uber in the US. In the UK, we're now talking to Burberry. So, very cool brands, but these are the kind of first stage companies that will really get out there to say, this is the benefit of this product. And we're going to use that as a case study with Dell to then drive out to further customers.
Okay, and the UN you mentioned as well.
Yeah, Michael Dell, he's very passionate about the United Nations. Dell's entrepreneur in residence, Elizabeth Gore, was the former entrepreneur in residence there. Again, this is the beauty of being with a large company. You can leverage the network and the contact base, and they've put their money where their mouth is. They've got us introduced to the United Nations. Great for us as a startup, a bit of a dream scenario to say we have the United Nations using our product, and essentially that's what's happening today. We are, again, only 2 years out there running, so it's very early days for us, but nonetheless, hopefully that this is kind of the rabbit in the hat for us compared to the Silicon Valley companies right now that are overcapitalized and equally getting big valuations and so on. So very much we're trying to grow the company organically with, I guess, the potential that Dell's giving us.
Okay, so you've got 3,000 users now, and you hope to have how many in a year, or by the end of the year?
Sure, so correct. We are very much in a controlled release of the product. Again, it's a large market. You've got 1 billion people out there. We don't want to be in a position where we've got too much demand and we can't handle it. So from our perspective, this year is about controlled release. So, by the end of the year, we're anticipating about 35,000 users. Once we get to that mark, then really we're looking at next year to further scale. At the moment, we are focusing on the US and the UK. But having said that, we are today at Mobile World Congress. We are here to meet distributors, partners that are reselling Office 365, and the aim is, again, to leverage the Dell technology as we do that.
Okay, great. And in terms of Michael Dell, he's personally used it himself. What does he say about the product?
Well, when we pitched to him, he said it was cool and he liked it. As I said, we didn't know too much back then why he did select us when there was a company that was about to IPO for $1 billion. We got to know that obviously email is a large part of Dell. It drives hardware sales, server sales, and in the case of Michael, I think he loved the fact that, again, it was fresh and it was new. And I think that's something that you don't tend to get every day. And this is where it goes back to, again, startups are the disruptors, they're the enablers of something that nobody else thought about.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to use Fantoo, I mean, how easy is it to access it, and how much does it cost per annum?
Sure. So this is one of the go-to-market strategies that we've tried to ensure we're minimizing any friction. Therefore, in terms of accessing it, once you are a Office 365 or an Exchange user, you have two options. You can either download it as a client to your desktop, or you can access it through your browser. And in both cases, everything goes back to Office. So again, all the security and the redundancy that you would expect from Microsoft is there in the product. In terms of cost, we're essentially charging $84 US per annum. And again, that goes back to that ROI that I mentioned. That's the cost, but if we can somehow get $4,000 back in your pocket per person, then that $84 is perhaps worth a bit of a punt. And again, in terms of trying the product, it doesn't mean you have to switch off your existing email system.
No.
You can try Fantoo in parallel to your existing setup. And that's what we've tried to ensure, that we are very much a frictionless product to try. You don't have to kind of give up your existing setup, and you can actually keep what you've got, try Fantoo out. If it works for you, good, you can then go further on with it.
Okay, so it's all about cost and efficiency.
Correct.
And how do you see your partnership with Dell in the future?
Dell has a huge customer base. We're working with the office of the CTO at the moment. That's come about thanks to Dell Ventures. Again, we're nurturing relationships for the future, but with the office of the CTO, they are particularly interested in that. We are providing an enhanced user experience, which could actually make it better for the experience on their laptops and tablets. So again, the relationship there is more about potentially seeing if we can put Fantoo on an actual Dell laptop or a tablet. If we can, then only on a Dell would be one of the leverages, I guess, that we would collectively try to push to customers in terms of that better experience.
Okay.
So that's one thing that if we can potentially put to work, we would love to do that.
Okay. And when you mention customers, I mean, who are your typical customers?
Typical customer right now is a small to medium sized business, typically anywhere up to 500 heads in a company. That's for now. As I said, we are doing very much a controlled release. By the end of the year, I suspect we should be really targeting companies that are up to 1,500. A lot of Dell's customer base are large companies that are 5,000 plus. So that's the kind of size of company. In terms of demographic, we're really going after people that are, again, visual, creative media. Hence why I mentioned to you people like WPP. Burberry is a very fashion-conscious brand, has a very new millennial workforce in there. So that's very much we're seeing when we're talking to Dell customers, and the Dell, sales personnel that are working with us, they see that this is actually going to be right for this type of customer. We're not going after big banks, we're not going after pharmaceutical companies, because we know that's not our low-hanging fruit. That's perhaps something to do in year 3 or year 4 from now.
I see. But I mean, the typical Dell customer is quite corporate, no?
Correct. And overall, the corporate space is our home base at the moment. We're not going after consumers. So in that corporate sense, this is the best place for us to be, because Dell understands the corporate market. They are one of the largest players in that market. They're not just a hardware company now. They're an end-to-end solutions company. So many companies don't know, but Dell's got billion-dollar investments in the software space. So we're all about leveraging that push from Dell as well. But again, the corporate space is our home base, so that just suits us fine.
Okay. And I mean, if somebody was to try Fantoo for the first time, I mean,
yeah.
It's a very accessible tool, and in terms of visually, but also it sort of times your work time. Is that how it works? It kind of times your efficiency.
Correct. I guess we failed if you need an instruction book on how to use Fantoo. So we very much made it intuitive, very simple, very clean. And correct, we're all about, every feature is driven by, do we save you time? Do we make it more pleasant for you as an experience? If we do that, we're essentially making you productive. We're essentially improving your efficiency.
Yeah.
So we've been very much, you could say, that's our driver, that's our passion.
Yeah. And you're actually focused on people that are, receiving a lot of emails per day.
Correct. I mean, the average we quote is the academic number, which is 312 emails a week. We found out from our colleagues at Dell, they get that sometimes on a day, if not an hourly basis. So, it's a pretty high volume, and that essentially adds to stress if you're not able to deal with that, or if you don't have a PA, you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, from our perspective, like I said, it's all about minimizing these high numbers so that we can get the most out of that person.
Okay, and also bringing down their stress levels when it comes to dealing with their emails.
Correct. Stress is something nobody likes to admit. In the US, there's a figure stated that stress adds to the GDP of the US workforce. And even if you can have an incremental benefit of 0.5% on that stress level coming down in the workforce, you've got, as I said, a game changer. So these are topics that perhaps a large corporate may not want to speak about,
yeah.
But for us as a startup, we can afford to rock the boat. And we can afford to talk about this because this is what we're about.
Okay.
And if we can prove ourselves, then we're onto something that becomes a big signal to a large corporate to really push. And that's what this relationship's about, for us to prove ourselves in the early days, but then to really leverage the global outreach of somebody like Dell to get it out there globally to the market.
Okay, because I mean, why does it, for example, Fantoo compared to other email sort of apps, why would people choose you over somebody else?
Combination. You've got, I guess, people that are, again, from different sectors in the market. You've got people that are linear thinkers, and a linear thinker perhaps may prefer another solution. We've got a company in our space called Slack, 2 years running, 500,000 users, $3 billion valuation, very much targeted to developers, coders, customer service people. We believe that's, again, targeted very well for the linear community. Same goes for Outlook, it's very well targeted for the linear community. We focused our product on, again, the non-linear community, people that are very visually driven. So we've tried to ensure that the product placement is suited for the market that we think really should be, having a solution provided, because they're the guys that have not been looked after, we believe, as effectively as it could have been.
Okay, but for the linear user, I mean, they would understand it because it works on the Outlook face, basically. It's a tool for both.
I guess at that point it becomes a question of, do you simply like the product or not? Do you like the interface or you don't like the interface? It's not for everybody, and we do, again, know our low-hanging fruit, and that's why we're focusing on a certain segment. Hence why I said to you earlier, we're not necessarily targeting big banks, we're not necessarily targeting big pharmaceutical companies, because we just know it's not going to be the low-hanging fruit for us. We're going to have a lot more hoops to jump through with those guys to ensure that they love the product, and that's what we want. We want people that love the product, that can evangelize it, that can really become our champions, so that we can maybe in year 3 go back to those big banks and those pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, yeah, because I mean the linear users are the ones that you would think about having 365 emails per day. So
correct. And you can imagine a new millennial who's not grown up with email gets 300 emails a day. They're going to be pretty worried. They're going to be thinking to themselves, I didn't get a whole email through my university degree. How come I'm getting it the first day after I'm going into a job now?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the key thing that we're trying to now really capitalize on.
Okay, and how does it work, Fantoo? You're talking about the universal use of it in terms of mobile phone and computer.
Sure.
So, I mean, the benefits of that is that we were talking earlier about Microsoft and how it doesn't quite frame.
It seems like a fickle issue, but we believe, in terms of our vision for the company, that a unified experience on desktop and mobile is key. Even, the number one player in the market, Microsoft right now, has a disconnected user experience. Mm-hmm. They took over a company last year, and they've tried to basically connect the two. Now we're working with Microsoft in a very closely coupled way to essentially give them our solution to say, look, a unified experience equals a better experience.
Yeah.
And that's, again, important. Simply having a mail client that came with your phone and being forced to use it, and it's very different to the mail client you use on your desktop, is that disconnect that adds to, again, not being as productive, not being as efficient. So if you imagine you've got the same solution that you're looking at and that you're working at day in, day out, from desktop to mobile, tablet, then there you go. You've got that efficiency and that continuity.
Because your tagline is the future of email.
Correct.
And the future of email is probably on tablets and mobile phones.
Correct. I mean, the future of email, I guess, is somewhat us putting out the fact that email has come a long way, has done its job, but it's not going to last forever. And we believe, the future of email still means that email will be a bridge in terms of how we get to what comes next. It's already out there, Twitter, social messaging. We just need to make sure that it's correctly presented to the user who's having to kind of use that email bridge going forward.
Oh, great. And when will Fantoo be available to the customers for the next round?
April. So April, we are opening up the platform for more users. So we're looking to provide, again, Mobile World Congress attendees a 30% discount. So it's a little bit of us, I guess, preparing ourselves for the next round. We are a startup. We're looking to get ready for a Series A. We've got investors from Silicon Valley now talking to us. And for us now, the next 9 months until the end of the year, it's really about proving ourselves. And from April, we're going to really open up the platform up to that 35,000 number that we mentioned earlier. Okay,
and Dell, I mean, they've helped you find investors and, also clients that are interested in the product.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how has that been beneficial in the last 2 years?
It's really, I guess, filtered us. There's a lot of companies out there, and God bless them, they're all out there trying to be noticed. And for us, we're here talking today. The ability to be noticed and really to be able to talk to investors, it adds a degree of credibility to us as a company and what we're doing.
Yeah.
So really, the Dell name for us has been positive in many ways. One thing we've mentioned to Dell is, this is not about Dell literally putting dollars into Fantoo. It's not even necessary because the credibility, the filtration that we're seeing, it's allowing us to really bring aboard a lot of private investment. So this is perhaps a good example of private companies working with private investors, and if not even public funds. We've received a lot of investment from the UK government. We received the highest award for R&D last year, which was $250,000.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of that came from the fact that we're with Dell.
Okay, but you actually started your investment on crowdfunding.
Correct. That was the first external round we did on Crowdcube in the UK. So we brought aboard a lot of investors at that point, and you could say we've matured now. So we've gone from angels, we're now starting to open up to institutional investors, and institutional investors look for that higher level of credibility and due diligence as opposed to an angel investor. So you could say this is a maturity happening right now, and we very much are thankful for Dell giving us that level up.
And Fantoo, the name, obviously it's named after you. You're Jordan Fantoo.
That obvious, I hope.
But that Fantoo is obviously, leading to the next generation of email.
Correct. Yeah, that's one thing about being in the tech space. You can't take your name too seriously. We live in a world of Google, Yahoo. Double O's are perhaps lucky. So my father's nickname for me. And like I said, we don't take ourselves too seriously. It makes us stand out. We're here to rock the boat, we're here to disrupt, and that's where the name comes from. And yeah, 2 is kind of a nice connotation on the future of email and where you're going to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jordan, for joining us today. And if people want to find out about Fantoo, where can they sign up?
We'd love to have anybody who's interested to know more about the product at Fantoo.com.
Fantoo.com. Thank you very much.